Okay, this is going to be a solo AK47 game set in my fictional imagination of Conga. I'm ready to start, so I've done all the pre-game bits, but this is just a little bit of a scan of the field of battle with the forces deployed. So here we have the town of Sojji and Sojji Bridge crossing the Jubilee River. We've got police station barracks here with some old tanks belonging to the superpower-backed client force that is defending. And we've got some outlying townships which form part of Sojji as well. You can see there. There's a little ford here, right on the table edge. So the defenders managed to get 3 units on the table. One is the unit of tanks. Also got a unit of mortars on the table, which is quite useful because they've got a 30-inch range. And then their 3rd unit is here, ensconced in Sojji Opera House. You can see there. There's a statue of President Chumbo. Nobody knows where he is. And there is Major Corporal Chigley Trumpton, who held a rally on the bridge, and it's all kicked off as a little emu, I think, or ostrich. Part of this unit, which are regulars, they've got 2 RPGs in that unit as well, are 2 truck-borne recoilless rifles, which should do some nice work. I'm not going to record the whole battle, I'll just give you an update at the end of each turn. So have a little pan back to the whole scene, then we're going to have a look at the attackers. So the attackers here are the People's Popular Front, although they are looking rather menacing here. Here's one of their 3 units. They've only got 3 units on, so it's a tough job to start with 2 units off table, but their reinforcements do arrive more easily than the defenders. So here's a unit of 6 technicals with HMGs. They'll obviously make a dash to the bridge, I would imagine. Do need to be careful about those recoilless rifles on the hill though, because they will blast them away with no problem. Their 2nd unit on table is a unit of armoured cars with tank guns. Now they will have a better range than the tanks belonging to the super-backed client force, so should be able to outmaneuver them. And then the 3rd unit coming on through the undergrowth here is a unit of militia with HMG, 2 RPGs and 5 small arm bases. Just pan back. So that's the scene at the start of the 1st turn. So just had second thoughts. I think what I'll do is just go through the 1st turn. So this is AK47 Republic Classic Edition. So for vehicles, they roll a D6 times 2 for distance. So we'll roll in the Peter Pig tray here. So they could move 4 inches. They will be, I think we'll just move them down here, down this road here, just to cover this hill. So there are 3 objectives in the game which I haven't explained. One is this hill with that bit of fence on it, but the whole hill is the objective. One is the police station barracks here, flying the flag. I think that's an old, it's an MDF building, but I'm not entirely sure where it's from. Probably from eBay. And the third objective is the bridge at Sojji itself. Now we can see, I think that's probably Johnny Concrete, who's the officer commanding, sitting atop the Opera House there, and Major Corporal Chigley Trumpton's probably going to take his choice of cars there and get out of town fairly quick, I would imagine. So second unit to move for the People's Popular Front will be the armoured cars. So again, D6 times 2, so that's not very good. So a couple of inches, so I'll just scoot forward there. These little bits of scenery aren't important. Second to move for the superpower backed force will be the mortars, but they aren't going to move. They're set up nicely there, and hopefully they may have a target fairly soon to shoot at. Finally, for the People's Popular Front, the Toyotas. And these move D6 times 2. That's 10 inches, so I'll move those. So the Toyotas have moved up. They're probably going to get shot at in a minute, but they'll be able to fire back. They've got a range of 18 inches with HMGs. Militia firing whilst moving over half distance won't be great, but we'll see how that goes. Okay, so the HMGs, 5 of them are in range of those truck-borne recoilless rifles. They can't see this infantry because they're not on the edge of the template, or not declared on the edge of the template. So it is the only target that they can shoot at. So the firing mechanism is 2d6 rolled by the attacker, 1 by the defender. Whichever is the higher of the two, you take the other number away from, so you always end up with a positive number. And then apply modifiers. Now the overall modifier here is -2 because HMG's firing get +1. It's over half range because 18 inches is normal range. The fire is militia and they've moved, so there's -3. Deductions +1 for the HMG comes out to -2. So on the dice here in the tray, that's the shooter's dice and that's the defender's dice, and we're going to apply a -2 to whatever the outcome of this is. Remember, if I roll a 6 on that dice and 3 on those dice, the factor is 3. So we'll fire with the white Toyota first. So that's going to be nothing. We've got 5 and 4 for a factor of 1, obviously going down to minus. So forgot to explain, so we need a difference of 6 for a kill and a 5 for a pin. So that's the white Toyota. The green Toyota, 9 -6 is 3, -2 is 1. So obviously there's got to be a big difference in these two dice. That's absolutely going to be nothing, but interestingly, that's a double 1. And the first double rolled by a unit in a turn has a special effect. So as we can see, a double 1, ammunition problem. That unit is -2 firing for the next turn. Oh dear. So that was 3 shots. The blue Toyota there, let's see if it can do any better. No, because this number's high. If that had been low, that would have been a good roll. So we've got 9, minus 6 is 3, minus 2 is 1. And finally, the last red Toyota there, opening fire. So this is more promising. So we've got 8, minus 1 is 7, minus 2 is 5, and that's achieved a pin on one of those units. So there we go, we have a little bit of smoke, just a white smoke to denote that's that unit's pinned. It will get to fire back at full effect, and we must remember that these are minus 2 on their shooting next turn, so that's really bad for them. So there's no other shooting for the attackers, so we come down to the defenders. Now these tanks, I've only got a range of 18 inches. Normally they'd be 26 inches. They can't actually see anything at the moment. It's because they've got old guns. They're old tanks. The mortars, however, do have shots, because they can most definitely see the Toyotas. This infantry in Sojji itself can't see anything, because they're not on the edge of the template. If they're on the edge of the template, they can shoot out, but they can then be seen. So we'll fire the mortars. Okay, so the People's Popular Front mortar team here then, they've got 5 mortars and firing at the Toyotas over there. It's over half range and they are militia. The one thing that we need to note is collateral fire. So any group, or it's any foot group within 2 inches of the target destroyed or pin themselves on a 5 or 6, so it doesn't affect vehicles. So in actual fact, I think there's probably only these 4, there's only 4 of the Toyotas that can be targeted here. The 2 at the back can't. But we're on another minus 2, similar to the other roll that we had. So again, we'll roll the dice for the first mortar here, and that's going to be nothing. That's a 5 minus a 6 minus a 5. We've got a 9 minus a 3, so that's down to 6 minus 2, 4, nothing. Third mortar, 8 down to a 7, down to a 5, so that is a pin on one of the Toyotas. So that's 1, 2, 3, so 4, 7 minus 5, nothing. And the 5th, that's a 10 down to a 6, minus 2, 4, nothing. So the sum total of the outcome of that is 1 pin on the Toyotas. Things might get a bit more serious now for those Toyotas. So they have just received a pin. You can see the marker there just to remind me about the minus 2 shooting next time. But these 2 recoilless rifles are about to send 2 rounds across to them. So the overall factor here is a +1, so it's +2 for the recoilless rifles firing. They haven't moved. The only other factor is it's over half range. So the recoilless rifles range is 18, and we're about 14 or 15 inches away. So 2 guns firing. Let's fire the nearest one first, and it's a +1 to this roll. So that's a 7. Minus a 3 is a 4, +1 is a 5, which is another pin. Didn't declare it, but we'll put it on a second Toyota there. There's no double pin as such. And then the truck that is pinned, or will be pinned next turn, will shoot at the blue Toyota. Again, we're looking at a +1 on the roll. That's not so good. So that's 5 minus 4 is 1, +1, 2, no effect. And that concludes the shooting at the end of the first turn. Okay, so the next part of the turn after carrying out firing is remove any pinned results from the previous turn, which we don't have. Then compulsory morale tests. Now, you only take morale if there's any pins or kills, your command distance is exceeded, so that's 2 inches for militia, 4 inches for regular, and 6 inches for professionals. So that's the gap in between each base. And then a nominated unit, which I'll come to in a second, which is a really interesting mechanic. But I can tell you for nothing that the Toyotas over there with a bit of kapok on them are in a bit of trouble, because the tester is militia, is 1. Each group in the unit pinned, and there's 2 of the Toyotas are pinned, so that's 3. And then they've been fired at by mortars this turn, so that's 4. So only 1 test taken per turn, plus maybe a nominated test. So the die roll must exceed the factor total. Or 1 always fails 6 passes. Any fail deducts 1 morale point. At 0 points, the unit is removed. Now, all units, regardless of quality, have 3 morale points. So those militia over there need to roll a 5 or better to pass morale. And they get a 5. Well done, them. Similarly, the unit here, those trucks are part of this unit in Sojji. They need to pass a morale test too, but they do have their overall commander here, not Major Corporal. He's just for show, but they do have their overall commander standing atop the Opera House. So looking at the factors for the unit with the recoilless rifles, we've got 1 group in the unit pinned. No other factors apply apart from -2 for the overall commander with the unit. So that puts it down to -1. So just coming back to this bit here, 1 always fails. So they only fail on a 1. And that's a 6. So no fail there. Now the next part is nominated morale test. Slight interruption there from the postman delivering some more Peter Pig figures, which is always nice. So the next part is the nominated morale test. So this, you can choose basically any unit on the table of the enemy to take a morale test. And even though units may not have even had sight of the enemy or been shot at, they have to take a morale test. And if we look at the factors again, militia units are very vulnerable to this because they're +1 automatically. So the unit just snaking their way through the woodland there would have to take a morale test and would fail on a 2+. Although they're in a template actually, so that would take them down to 0. But we are reminded by the fact that a 1 always fails. So a unit can always fail, no matter how solid they are. A professional unit in a template that's not been damaged can fail. And that's the vagaries of war in modern Africa. So I think the obvious one though for the People's Popular Front to choose is for the super power back client force attackers, is for the Toyotas over there to take their test again. They passed on a 5. It's going to be the same factor, so they need a 5 again, and that's a fail. So that unit has lost 1 morale point. And I think similarly, actually, let's put it on the mortars because they're in the open. They still only test because the militia quality of 1, so they need a 2. So it's no different to any other unit. Or we could put one on the tanks actually. Let's risk it on the tanks. They're far more valuable. And on a roll of 1, they lose a morale point. And that's a 4, so they're fine. As with most Peter Pig games, there's a countdown mechanism, so the game doesn't last an infinite number of turns. What it generally does is forces the attacker to get on with things. In original AK47, the countdown starts at 33, and we're going to take a dice roll off that at the end of each turn. So we take 3 off, so the countdown's down to 30. Okay, so that's the end of one turn. What we'll do then from now on is just have an update at the end of each turn, and we'll see how things go. Okay, start of turn 2. This militia unit have managed to force their way through this undergrowth here. I don't think they're going to be ready to assault this position yet because of these tanks, which would probably make quite light work of them. So they may well just hang about in that template for a while. The armoured cars have moved up. The People's Popular Front older tanks stood still, hoping that the armoured cars might appear. We've obviously had some intelligence that that might happen. The mortar team have stayed still. Toyotas have moved forward a little bit. They didn't roll very well, but they have got all of their Toyotas in range now. And the regular infantry here have actually decided to go and fight for the bridge rather than wait for the Toyotas to cross it. I'm going to count this as a template, but only for foot troops, not for vehicles, because otherwise vehicles wouldn't be able to enter it. I think that's probably fair. I think foot troops would be able to make use of the cover that would be afforded by the iron work on the bridge, or the steel work on the bridge, as opposed to the Toyotas. So it's shooting next. So an update at the end of second turn. Not a lot happened actually. Mortars carried on firing at the Toyotas and caused 1 pin. They've passed both of their morale tests, but as you can see there's another token on them now, and they've got -2 to movement with caution and confusion within the unit. The pin has come off the trucks there, but the recoilless rifle that did fire this turn missed. The mortars have got their own ammunition problems for next turn. There's no shooting over here, so that's the end of turn 2. Reinforcements can start to be rolled for at the end of turn 4. See what happens. Okay, end of the third turn, and a little bit more has happened here actually. So the armoured cars for the People's Popular Front had a little shot here. They could only see this one tank. I've no idea what kind of tank that is. It's an old plastic model I picked up many years ago, and did pin it, and as a result, because they were under fire from tanks and had a pin, they failed one of their morale tests. They did pass the second one, but they are 1 morale point down. So the mortar team fired again and didn't hit a thing, but they did get a double 4 or 5, a double 5, which means they could have +5 on their movement next turn, but they aren't moving, so not much point there. And then the unit in the that are taking the bridge here, they did have a little shot across the bridge to no effect and rolled a double 2, so they got cautious movement. And one of the trucks got pinned again by the machine guns from here. Now these have now failed 2 morale tests, so I've only got 1 point left, so these are really fragile. I doubt they're going to hang around much longer. They certainly could do without getting pinned again next turn. But they did get a double 6, which means that they can call in an artillery strike. Now the rules as written seem to say that only a professional unit, when they roll a double 6, can get an artillery strike, but this is Africa. We can have a double 6 artillery strike for anybody in my games. And the militia in the jungle there have just sort of spread out and made sure that they're in a good place to try and run up on this hill when they get opportunity. But these tanks here definitely need to sort out these tanks here. That may happen next turn. Okay, the countdown is on to 20. I rolled 6 last time, so we're rattling through after 3 turns. Next is turn 4, and we can start to dice for arrivals. Okay, the end of turn 4, and as expected, the militia Toyotas, oh, excuse me, had a charge, a mad charge across the bridge. Lost one of the Toyotas to an RPG, and that was enough for them. They've now failed 3 morale tests, so they're gone. So this unit now will hold that bridge quite comfortably at the moment because there's no popular front to challenge them. Mortars didn't hit anything, but just by firing on the unit caused a morale test. The tank duel here, well, it's professionals with regular guns against regulars with old guns, and there's 1 destroyed tank each with a pinned. But this unit of tanks here have passed 2 morale tests. So 1 was the compulsory and 1 was the nominated test, and they passed them both. As did the professionals, but I think that was on a 3 or a 4, so no certainty there. Fortunately for the People's Popular Front, they have a unit arriving in these Unimog trucks who will be able to move on this turn. No reinforcements for the defenders. Let's just see what the countdown does. So we're currently on 20. -1 is 19. So turn 5 to come. End of turn 5. Not an awful lot happened, other than the fact the People's Popular Front lost another tank here, and they have passed 2 morale tests, the compulsory and the nominated. But they are down to 1 morale point, so they are very fragile at the minute. The professionals on the hill didn't lose another tank, but passed their morale test, which was the nominated test. The regular unit here in Sojji have now taken the bridge, and will take some getting off it, I would suggest. Mortars didn't do anything. For the People's Popular Front, it was good news because a unit arrived here. They'll be able to cross this ford if they wish, and maybe look to hold the police station. The arrival from the last turn for the superpower backed client force moved on, not very far, but they've moved. So that's the position at the end of turn 5. Very quick turn 6 then. There's a bit of a lull in fighting because nothing much can see each other than these tanks. They continue their duel. The only interesting thing that happened there was the professionals suffered a vehicle breakdown, so that if they want to move, they're going to have to roll to repair, but they're still being held by this 1 old tank here. Both were nominated to take the nominated morale tests, and both passed. The regular unit in Sojji have just consolidated their position And I've got their truck up onto the bridge just in case anything chooses to come over and challenge them. There was no unit arrivals, but this militia unit have started to head towards the ford to look to get across. And these trucks moved up, but very slowly, only rolled a 1. So not much has changed. The countdown rolled 5 and is now down to 12. So probably another 3-4 turns. Let's see what happens. Okay, end of turn 7. The countdown's already down to 6. I've rolled 6 again, so it's a relatively short game. Interestingly, the mortars on the hill here fired on these guys who've debussed on this hill, caused a pin and then collateral. They were quite lucky, only 2 bases were affected by collateral fire, and that really could have impacted their morale, but fortunately their commander is with the unit, so he saved them somewhat, and they have shot themselves and got a double for an artillery strike and managed to kill the lead base crossing the ford here with the HMG. Didn't pin this unit, and these guys are following up behind. Also interestingly for the People's Popular Front, look at this lot. So this unit arrived, which is a swarm of militia. They're going to be racing to contest that hill. So these militia for the superpower backed client force have come out onto the hill to take it and try and defend it. The tanks here finally won their duel, the People's Popular Front tanks, so let's free these up now to maybe do something. But at the moment it's 1 objective each, and the police station is standing empty. So there's going to be a bit of a race to take that. Because I've rolled quite high, we've only had 7 turns. I think you would expect 10, 11 turns normally. Of course I could roll 6 1s, but let's see where we go. All of the People's Popular Front are on the table now. So we have the regular units in Sojji there on the bridge. We've got the mortar team on the hill. The militia here, that's 3. The tanks were on but have now been destroyed, 4. And this huge unit of militia here, which are going to be doing their best to take that hill. The attackers and the superpower back force have still got 1 unit off table, which is 2-toed guns, which I think would probably be best brought on in this corner to fire on the bridge and hopefully cause some morale panic there. But we will have to see how things go. It's getting quite tight. There's been very few casualties. In fact, this death here was the first small arms casualty of the game, which is very unusual. But that's how it goes sometimes. The view there, just pulling back, a dramatic helicopter-like shot. I come in on Bob Sneedling, who's reporting for AIP from the top of, what's this building? I think this is the cinema. On top of the cinema, and there's the bank, first bank there. Okay, so let's see how turn 8 goes. Okay, end of turn 8. Countdown is now down to 4. So possibly this may be the last turn. A little firefight here. Nothing much happened. I couldn't quite decide whether these machine guns could fire. So ordinarily HMGs can't fire and move. So does that mean if the whole unit moves but they stay still, they can fire, or if the whole unit moves and they don't move, they still can't fire because it's counted as a whole. I've gone with the idea that they can fire because it'd be too restrictive, and that may be wrong, but they are limited in the movement, so even though the rest of the unit moved, they had to stay where they are, so they could fire. Didn't matter, they missed anyway. All of this smoke here is from the mortars. So the mortars have put 4 pins on this unit, which will impede them somewhat from getting to the police station. The unit crossing the river here still continues its journey. It's got a narrow route that they have to take, but they need to do that. The professional tanks have come off the hill to look to try and support anybody who's going to take the police station. The regular unit and Sojji are quite happy there. However, in the far distance you'll see that the tow guns arrive, so they will unlimber this turn and start to fire on the bridge, and if they can incur enough casualties, they might be able to force that unit out of the game. The militia here on the objective have taken the hill and have started a firefight with this huge unit, who didn't cause any casualties but did gain a double 5 roll for a sneak move, so they're going to be possibly charging into combat with these. That could be quite interesting. Okay, so all units on the table, no reinforcements, we're down to 4. It's getting very close. It's still relatively bloodless, other than the Toyotas over there and the tanks here. Still just this one dead small arm base. Let's see how turn 9 goes. And we're still going. So end of turn 9, the countdown's down to 3. I rolled 1 there, and there's been an absolutely fierce and bloody firefight here. So there's dead all over the place actually. The militia here probably comes slightly worse off because they've failed a morale check and these haven't, so these have only got 1 morale check left, but there's as you can see, there's quite a few dead scattered around. These have done terribly actually. They've got 3 pinned bases and 3 dead now. It's only the presence of the overall force commander there that has kept them on the table. And these militia have certainly held up that unit from getting into the police station. Over here, the charge did happen, but they rolled a 1 on movement. So that was +2 for 3, +5 for the sneak movement 8, but -3 because over half of the unit were in this template here. So actually only 2 bases got into contact. They had a little fight, nothing happened. The various militia bases have shot at each other, but just nothing happened. The 2 professional tanks had a shot, missed everything they tried to shoot. The mortars continued their attention over here to stop this regular unit from getting to the police station, caused this pin here. There was no collateral damage though. And the guns unlimbered, fired on the bridge and missed everything. So I think because there's 1 turn left, or possibly only 1 turn left, we'll continue to concentrate on this unit to try and get them off that objective. Whether we can or not is another matter, but it's certainly hotted up in this region here on the outskirts of Sojji. And this absolutely huge militia unit are now free from any movement restrictions, so the superpower backline force militia are going to have a hell of a job holding that objective, but let's see how it goes. Okay, so after 10 turns of hard fighting, the battle is done. Surveying the field, I'll tell you who won in a minute. But that last turn again was quite bloody. Firefight continued down here. Amazingly, this militia unit, their morale held, so they stayed on the field, as did this huge unit here who were rolling 5s. Needed 6s to pass their morale test. Because they'd taken so many casualties, they got dead on the field, and being militia, they needed 6s, and they failed once. They failed twice in the game, so lost 2 points. But on the very last turn, on the nominated test, rolled a 6 and survived and stayed on the field. It's a bit of a mishmash, but generally the figures on the sort of outside here are the attackers' militia, and the big rabble in the middle is the defenders' militia. The officer commanding for the attacker managed to get to the police station and hold it. They were under mortar fire from here, but they were safe in the walls. And the regular unit on Sojji Bridge, they passed their morale test despite being under fire from artillery. So that was the end of the game. It was a fairly bloodless game, really. I've seen far more bloody games, albeit this firefight here ended up with a few casualties. I did this here where there was some close quarter fighting. But there was only a total of about 12 bases overall of small arms that were killed. So there you go, that was the Battle of Sojji Bridge, and the winner was the attacker, which surprised me a little bit. So that's the superpower back client force, 52 points to 42 points. Both sides lost 1 unit, so the attackers lost the Toyotas over on the bridge over here, and the defenders lost their tanks. Those were the only 2 units to be destroyed. Both sides hold 1 objective, so the attacker held the police station. Now the police station, luckily for them, was the 30-point objective. I've randomised that. I didn't know what that would be until I'd finished the game, so that was a massive help. If the police station had been the 10-point objective, which turned out to be the hill, they'd have lost the game, and the bridge was the 20-point objective. So that was the difference in the end. The hill objective over here was too contested by those 2 militia units. But yeah, that was enjoyable. It felt like a quick game. It did go to 10 turns, so 33, that's probably about average from the countdown. If you average of 3.5 per roll of the dice, could have gone a little bit longer. All the units came on at the end, by the end of the game, and played a part actually, so that was nice. I think, what could the attacker have done differently? Well, not knowing which objective was going to be the most valuable objective. Now, as the attacker in a face-to-face game, you would know that, because the attacker decides which objective is worth the most points. But playing solo, to keep it balanced and even, I wasn't aware of which objective was going to be the most. So clearly that had a big impact, the fact that the defenders held Sojji Bridge but lost the police station. So that was a 10-point swing in favour of the attacker, and that was the difference in victory points at the end of the game. So, you know, it was really the deciding factor. It was a real randomised factor. So if as the attacker you know which is the 30-point objective, then clearly you focus on taking that. So I think all's fair in love and war, but that is a victory for Daniel Groucho and his party, whereas Trumpton and his People's Popular Front, well, clearly the rally didn't quite do as much as he wished to drum up support. But I hope you enjoyed watching that. I think the video is probably going to come out at about 40 odd minutes. I'm going to take some still photos now, put them up on the group. But this was my little tribute, I suppose, to Dex McHenry's wonderful AK47 day over at Patriot Games in Sheffield. Well done, Dex, for getting that sorted and on, and it looks tremendous. And you had I think you had 10 players. Quite a few games played of both Classic and Reloaded. AK47 is about to get another rewrite from Peter Pig, which is going to be a gridded game. But nobody is going to come and rip the old copy of the rules out of your hands and demand that you don't play it anymore. So don't worry about that if you don't fancy a gridded game, but I'll be play testing it and seeing how it goes. But I'll definitely be playing a bit more of Classic because it is just such an easy game to play, full of character, and hopefully you've seen that during the course of this video. So okay, I'll sign off now. Wish you all the best, stay safe, play nice, and see you soon.